I can give you a background on Roger. That's easy. And he was born in London around 1603, okay, in the Smithfield section on Cow Lane, okay. His mother was an innkeeper. His father was a merchant tailor. And that's not just a guy that sells suits. He's the one that sells and makes the suits for the people at Parliament, for the people at court, the real dressy, bespoke suits.
Oh, I see. So he wasn't from a poor family. He had some money.
It was upper middle class.
Okay.
Okay. They had money. They had a house and an inn across the street from the house. So they're doing pretty well. Okay.
Gotcha.
The Smithfield section of London, about 100 yards down the street from where Roger grew up, is where they had executions.
Oh, fun.
Well, when Roger was a little kid, he would have seen one of the last of the burning of a heretic about 100 yards from his house. And not just seen it, but would have heard it, because they brought crowds around there. But the worst part about it is he would have smelled it. Mm-hmm. Seeing people actually being burned at the stake for religious heresy. Okay, about the length of a football field away from where he lived. It's not something you can get away from. And his church was right across the street. His church was St. Sepulchre's. And there was a tunnel that went from the church over to the cells where prisoners were held. And there's a bell still there in that church that they used to ring when someone was going to be executed in the morning. And there's a whole poem laid out there.
To summarize, Roger is born into a world where watching people get violently brutalized, burned at the stake, hanged, persecuted for any reason really, but mostly religious reasons, was the name of the game.
It was normal.
That was very normal. That's what people did.
Yep. People were either meeting in secret to follow their own faith, or some of them actually got up and left.
What I'm picturing here in the late 15 and early 1600s is a small country in the north part of Europe that is for generations normalizing violence, patriarchy, religious fervor and violence, and in which people are watching each other, and not just watching each other, where children are being raised in environments where people are getting physically tortured and abused on a regular basis as just a normal...
That's the norm.
This is the normal world that we live in.
Yeah.
And this is the generation, Roger's generation. These are the people that ended up being the first English settlers of New England. This is the world that they came from. Yeah. And I can't imagine what they thought they were going to create here when they arrived.
But these people that are leaving England, okay, they tried going to other places in Europe. It didn't work. And there's these stories about this place across the ocean, okay? Jamestown is already set up down in Virginia. They've already had horrible times down there from starvation and the weather, everything. And to get to this new world, you've got a 2-month sea voyage with a 20% chance that you're not going to make it. The descriptions of this new world are just paradise. Okay, the ones that are coming back, they're talking about food and the climate and the water, and everything is clean and everything is beautiful. So that's probably one of the motivating factors to get out of this horror movie, step out of the doors of the theater into sunlight. People are reading the Bible in their own language for the first time and realizing that all of these churches, the organizations that are out there, that's saying, that's not in the Bible. That's not in the Bible. Why are you doing that? And there's a group that's trying to get back to the fundamentals of Scripture. They end up, by outsiders, they call them Puritans. They're holier than thou. They want to be pure. Get rid of all the trappings of the old Roman Catholic Church.
Right.
And Roger becomes one of them. He wants to get back to the heart of this. He sees the potential in Scripture. He wants to get back to the heart of that and becomes one of these Puritans. He graduates out of Cambridge University, becomes a minister at an estate, okay? and he's writing things down and preaching there. But there's a hard crackdown on all these nonconformists, if you would. If you're not part of the Church of England, you're a nonconformist.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and there's a crackdown, and a whole bunch of them that had worked together, had a network of communication and worship and everything else. A whole bunch of them end up leaving England and going over and settling in the Massachusetts Bay.
Was Roger born an outsider? Like, was he just inherently did not fit in?
I think so. I think particularly with the politics, he saw how the sausage was made. Okay, which means, I mean, you don't want to know what actually goes in there, and most of the public doesn't even pay attention to it. But he saw how it was made and saw that the same thing was going on with these organized churches too. It was the same kind of sausage making, and he's disheartened, but at the same time he sees potential. And he tries to work with reform in England until he, after a very short time, realizes this ain't going to happen here. Everybody's got their hooks in too deep,
right?
Because it's been centuries that this has been done that way. And the only possible place to go for any level of freedom is to go to this new world, as he would say, new world so-called. So you've got ambition, okay? You've got almost a fanatical sense of devotion to something. In this case, it's religion. Mm-hmm. You've got a drive, unlike most people have, because they're leaving everything behind and coming to this place. And you've got a unique perspective on things, because he didn't come from the upper classes, he didn't come from the lower classes, right. But he's literally weaving in between the two. And he sees both worlds there and knows it's got to be something better. And Roger leaves and goes down to Plymouth. These people at Plymouth are different. They're separatists. They want to break entirely from the Church of England.
Oh, so there's the Thanksgiving folks that we're talking
They're
about.
They're different,
okay? Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. But while he's there, Roger becomes the teacher, and then he becomes the assistant minister there. He starts preaching that a minister shouldn't be paid. That makes you a mercenary. You're only doing it for the money. You're not doing it because God is in your heart and you're trying to get it out. Mm-hmm. Okay, so which means Roger needs a job. He's a city boy. He doesn't know how to hunt. He doesn't know how to fish. He doesn't know how to farm. What he does know how to do is trade.
Okay. Oh, sure. His family.
Right. His history is trade. And so he goes and takes some English goods, knives, kettles, hoes, axes, blankets, mm-hmm. and goes out among the people that are already there, mm-hmm. the Native Americans, the Wampanoag and the Narragansett, mm-hmm. and starts trading with them. One of the things he learns from being back in London is if you speak more than one language, you can get better deals on things. When, say, the ship comes in from Italy with fine silks from the Orient. If you speak Italian, as that ship is docking, you can start making deals with the guys on board the ship before it gets to market.
Right, yeah, yelling it across the water at the dock, like, hey, come over this way.
Come over this way with that. But you can make the quick deals.
Yeah.
Okay? So Roger takes that same lesson and learns the Native American language here. But when you learn a new language, okay, it's never just word substitution with the same framework. There are entire concepts that are different. I'll give you a great example.
Okay.
In English, we have a sheet of paper. Mm-hmm. Okay, but sheet has a whole set of things in your mind. There's a sheet of glass, a sheet of ice. It's a long, flat, smooth thing, right? Mm-hmm. In French, it's une feuille de papier, a leaf of paper. All of a sudden, there's a whole new set of things that are leaf-like.
Right.
Okay. When you learn a new language, you learn that they see the world differently, mm-hmm. that there are concepts that don't translate sometimes. Mm-hmm. And Roger learned their language, learned how they hunt, how they fish, how they farm, the way that they use this land, and then comes out defending Native American land rights. He says you can't take land here just because the king says so back in England. These native people are the rightful owners of this land. If you want to live here, make a deal with them.
All right, so this information is shifting my entire perspective about the early interactions and relationships that the European people had with the indigenous people here. Because what I've just heard is that, yes, Roger learned the language, but he did it in order to buy and sell things from a European perspective that he brought with him, and that seemed natural. And so to him, and so in the process of trying to better his relationship and become a better neighbor in this new place that he's living in, he's also bringing some ways of trading goods that may be new or may be different. So just in the last couple of years, I'm thinking about how the coronavirus has turned everything that we've done upside down and completely changed the way we look at the world.
Yep.
That is nothing near 90% of the population just being wiped out in a few years.
Right. The European settlements in New England, Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay, happened at, well, Plymouth in particular, 1620. Okay. They happened at a horrible point in Native American history. Because just before that, in between 1616 and 1619, some sort of European disease swept through southeastern Massachusetts and going up into northern Massachusetts, present-day Massachusetts, and killed in between 60 and 90% of the Native American population.
That's almost everybody.
Well, imagine if 90% is 9 out of every 10 people dead.
Right.
Okay? And it was quick, and it moved through the population like a brush fire. Okay? Whenever that happens, it's not just a lot of dead people. It totally disrupts the entire culture. Okay? And right next door, across Narragansett Bay in what's now Rhode Island, were the Narragansett, who were unaffected by this disease for whatever reason. Either it didn't reach them or whatever. But to the east of the Narragansett country, 60 to 90% are dead. That's the world that the people that we call the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth at. When they say that God had cleared the land for them, they're looking at land that literally has been cleared to plant, and there are dead bodies in the woods. So many people died that they couldn't be buried. Okay, so the English point of view, again, they know they're right because they got across the ocean, and now the land's been cleared for them. These are all things reinforcing their preconceived notion that they're supposed to be doing this.
Right.
Okay.
So, look, we took this huge risk for this wonderful land that we believed was across the sea, and when we arrived,
it's been cleared.
It's been, and there's already stuff here.
Yeah, the place is ready to be settled.
And not understanding why, right? These are people who had no idea what a germ was.
No. Even the English didn't know what germs were.
Right.
Okay, this is something, it's a plague. It comes through, it sweeps through, and people are dying left and right, literally bodies laying out in the woods. Okay? And there's nobody, the people that survive, some of them don't have the strength to do anything at this point. It's a horrible situation, but that's that pivotal point in the Native American history here that the Europeans came and settled.
Right. I mean, it makes sense to me that people would believe in invisible things that come through and kill everybody because at the time that's what it was.
Well, it's self-affirming, you know.
Right.
It's self-affirming. Whether one has anything to do with the other, they believed it did. You can understand, I mean, just looking at it this way, you can understand why people like the Pilgrims, who believed that they were doing, what they were doing is what God wanted them to do, that all the pieces are falling into place for them. Okay. Europeans have been coming over here for hundreds of years before that. Okay, supposedly Columbus was the first one in 1492, but he's not. Something happened around 1616 or 1617 that some of those Europeans that were coming over here brought a disease that was absolutely devastating to the Native American population. They're using Roger as an example of how the leadership in Massachusetts Bay can't control its people.
Right.
So Massachusetts Bay has to crack down, and they crack down on Roger, their friend. Okay. They give him the opportunity to shut up. He refuses. So they literally tell him he has to leave. He starts off being sick, but he ends up keeping a promise that he can't preach those dangerous opinions in church. Okay, but what he does do, as he's waiting for the spring to arrive so he can go back home, he discusses those ideas at his house, and pretty soon his house is more crowded than the churches are. It was too much for the authorities in Boston. They send troops up in January of 1636 to arrest him, put him on the next boat back to England.
Right.
Hip-deep snow, so cold that Narragansett Bay froze over. He gets word that they're coming up to get him and get him out of there. So he's, as John Cotton says, he is enlarged to the world. He escapes into the wilderness. But he's a city boy from London in a New England winter that's harsh by even today's standards. Within a couple of days, he would have froze to death. He's found by some Native Americans who take him in. They bring him down to Wampanoag territory. They give him shelter. They feed him. They take care of him. Okay. Eventually, he makes a deal with the leadership of the Narragansett for the land that is now Providence. Okay. Providence, that area that he's allowed to live in, okay, was a resource spot that was used for thousands of years by all the Native American groups around here.
Sure.
And if you look at a modern map, the roads are based on Native American highways that used to go through this area. Route 1, Route 44, Route 6, all go to Providence. This huge saltwater cove with lobsters, clams, oysters, okay, salmon for 2 rivers worth, a freshwater spring, flat area, places where they would have, seasonally, they'd go there to gather the resources, okay? Roger's one more resource for the Narragansett.
Right. So, I mean, you say he makes a deal with them.
Yeah.
And essentially what that is, they find an opportunity and he finds an opportunity for him to do what he's good at, which is buy and trade goods.
Yeah.
Right? And they allow him to do that in the place where there's a lot of goods and things already being traded. Right. So it's like, hey, you can come and move in the market.
Yeah.
Oh, you do this for a living? Well, we have this open place in the market. You can come and live here.
But there's more than that he's obligated to, too. Okay? He is a translator. He's the mediator in between the Narragansett and all the other English. When the Narragansett want to send a message to the English in Boston, who they don't get along with, Roger's the one that gets to write it down.
Which, again, is a skill that he had in London. And so he's just applying things that he's been doing forever.
He's the mediator in between the English and the native population that's living here.
Do you think at the time everybody saw that as a beneficial agreement? Or
you mean both sides, Native American and English?
Sure, yeah, and not like all the English, right? Because there were, the people in Massachusetts Bay didn't want him to be on the continent at all, and now all of a sudden he's got a pretty powerful role in a place that he's not supposed to be in.
Well, that was the whole thing. This little place was outside of the Massachusetts Bay jurisdiction.
So they didn't get to say.
They didn't get a say. You know who had to say? The Narragansett. There's 20, 30,000 Narragansett, and Providence is maybe 150 people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the relationship.
Right.
Okay, and Roger makes a deal with them. He says, I'll be the mediator. I'll provide you with these English goods that you want from these other people but don't trust. Okay, we'll build this neighborhood, this relationship as neighbors.
And that is at the park now.
Where the memorial is.
That is the land and the ground that is the National Memorial today.
Yeah. Not just that piece. It goes from Pawtucket out to Newtoconkinut Hill and back down to Patuxent. It's about 5 miles on a side, back by the Blackstone and the Providence River.
We can go there today.
Absolutely.
We can go to the spot
Yep.
where this moment happened.
Yeah.
That Roger was not only saved, physically, but then also found this new place and created a new kind of government.
Yeah, and that's the key. They didn't have any documentation from England saying this is what your government is going to be like. So Roger actually asked John Winthrop, what should we do? And they said, make some sort of agreement among yourselves. And so they did. And they said they were going to do things by the majority vote of the heads of households, but only in civil things. They were going to make no religious rules. This document doesn't mention God at all. There are households that are there, and the heads of the households are all going to meet every couple of weeks, and they're going to vote. And the majority decision is what the town does. But religion isn't part of it. Every other document, God's at the heart. God has brought us here, and God is going to do this for us, and we're going to be God. Here, we're heads of households in a community and going to vote for things.
And nothing screams louder the intent of that than for people who were as deeply religious as the Puritans and the Pilgrims to write anything that did not have the word God on it. Like that said something very clear.
And it's not the people that were coming to Providence who were godless. Roger is a hardcore Christian, believing in Scripture, okay? But he had seen how the sausage was made back in England.
Right.
Okay? And that government and religion were so intertwined for power's sake that if it comes to making a compromise, religion, the belief would suffer. Okay? The best government in the world works when there's some sort of a compromise in between two parties. And that's when it works perfectly. And government never works perfectly.
Never.
There's always some sort of corruption level. And if you want your faith tied to that,
then you're tying your faith to
corruption. Exactly. This is the beauty of it. I mean, Rhode Island, because of what Roger Williams did and set up, literally, like he said, a hedge or wall of separation between church and state. That means the government needed a new source of authority. Because before that, remember, the king is there because God wants him to be king.
Sure.
When you separate church and state, the government doesn't get its authority from God anymore.
That's what all the fighting was about. Everybody thought that they were acting on behalf of God.
Exactly. Here, Roger said in the Bloody Tenant, 1644, the sovereign, original, and foundation of civil power lies in the people. And they have the right to establish what form of government they choose that has as much power and lasts as long as they say so. Which sounds an awful lot like 100 years later when Jefferson is writing in the Declaration of Independence, the Founding Fathers using a lot of these same ideals when they're putting the Constitution together. The Constitution doesn't start off like our charter did. Charles II, by the grace of God, King, is going to allow the colonies to do this, that, and the other thing. The Constitution is beautiful. The first three words are 10 times bigger than anything else in the document. Big, bold, black letters shouting out to the world that we, the people, are going to tell the government what it can and cannot do. And that's based on Roger's idea that the people are the foundation of civil power.
So when you read the Constitution and it says we the people, in the 1780s, what that meant was not God.
Right.
That's remarkable. And so Roger builds this community, and it leads me up to the reason that I actually really brought you here today, John. I was reading a quote from Roger towards the end of his life. And towards the end of his life, there had been a couple of generations of people now in Providence. The community's growing. There are a lot of people here. And he's seeing some things that are a little bit different than the spirit in which he founded the place 40 years earlier. And so the quote reads this. I have one only motion and petition which I earnestly pray the town to lay to heart as ever they look for a blessing from God
on the town, on your families, your corn and cattle, and your children after you. It is this, that after you have got over the Black-brooke of some foul bondage yourselves, you tear not down the bridge after you by leaving no small pittance for the distressed souls that may come after us. Yet ourselves know that some men's distresses are such that a piece of dry crust and a dish of cold water is sweet. Roger is speaking to the second and third generation that have been living in this place, and it's almost like he's scolding them. If you want blessings on your cattle, your food, the things that you value, and your children after you. Remember to take care of those that have less. Okay? We have these ideals. We're human. No human being ever lives up to the ideals that they hold in their heart. They always fall short. Roger, anybody else that's living at that time. But the beauty of all of this is that these ideals are still a thread in the American society. And that's the hard part, is trying to live up to these ideals that were established 300 years ago. Year after year, generation after generation, somebody is failing. But the quote still rings true. If you want the blessings, don't forget about the people that have less.
I've always thought that America is a paradox, that two conflicting ideas and two conflicting histories are simultaneously true. And we have to be comfortable living with that conflict and talking about and understanding that conflict in order to move forward. As soon as somebody comes along and says, no, there's no conflict, this is who we are and everything is resolved, those are the most dangerous ideas.
It's neglecting human nature. It really is, because human beings go out there and they do things, and there's as many motivations as you can imagine with human beings. Some people are just greedy, and some people are altruistic, utopia-loving, they just want everything to be peaceful and beautiful. And in between those two are as many different ideas as there are people. And if we have this one thread of ideal that everybody can look at and say that's what we want, at least we can still work towards it.